There were also economic changes that we need to talk about. And we need in particular to talk about the rise of manoralism, right, which is an economic system. So first of all, I just want to look at this map. There is the manor house. That's where the Lord lived. And manoralism is an economic system centered around the local lord. Right? That's why it's called manoralism. It's centered around the local lord. So in manoralism, we have an economic system. It's connected to feudalism. This is economic. Feudalism is basically political. Based around self-sufficient farming, where lords, knights, and serfs live off the land they reside on. So you can kind of think about it this way. When you sit down for dinner, right, and you say have a hamburger and French fries, the fries may have come from Idaho, the wheat from the bread may have come from Indiana, the beef might have come from Arizona. I guess it's not a beef place. Well, the beef is from somewhere else. You may also eat a banana from Guatemala, right? You will have food from all over the place. The clothes you're wearing might be made from China, right? Your shoes might be made in Bangladesh, right? You're going to be wearing and eating things from all over the world. But in this system, the food you eat, it came from here. You know, where's the wheat from the bread I'm eating? Well, it comes from that field over there. This pork I'm eating, where is it? Well, that's from the pigs that we let roam in the forest. Where are my food? Where are my clothes? Where's the wool? Where's the wool clothes I'm wearing? Where do they come from? Well, that comes from the sheep that's in the pasture over there. So this is what I mean about economic self-sufficiency. Most of the stuff that you have was created locally. So these are autonomous communities. These are communities that basically stick to themselves. The people are not going to be traveling very far from their community. They're not really supposed to, right? The serfs are tied to the land. The Lord may travel about because he's going to be fighting, but a lot of the other people aren't that much. And because these communities are autonomous, there's little trade and communication between them. So if my village grows wheat and your village grows the same kind of wheat, why would we bother trading? It doesn't make sense. So there's going to be very little trade. So there's going to be a decrease in living standards. Remember, one of the great things about trade is it gives you access to things that you otherwise would not have. So you have many different food choices, for example, you can make when you eat. People in this time period did not, because they weren't engaged in trade, or much trade, right? That decreases in this decentralized political and economic system, feudalism and manoralism. I do better with concrete examples. So let me give you a concrete example of how this is going to lead to the worsening. The decline in trade leads to a worsening in the living standards of people. So during the Roman Empire, they had roof tiles. If you lived in a house, it probably had tile roofs made of clay. And a lot of these were actually imported from North Africa. So if you were living in England, you could actually get, a lot of the houses would actually have roof tiles made in North Africa, right? This is long distance international trade in a sense. I know that they're all part of the Roman Empire, but it's kind of like international trade because England and Africa are pretty far away. Okay. With the decline of the Roman Empire and its fall in the West, these were not available anymore. You're not going to be buying roof tiles from Africa in France or in England during this time period. That trade has gone away. Instead, you'll live in a house that likely has a thatched roof made of basically like a kind of hay. And you may say, well, that's a nice little cottage. That's very quaint. Well, you know, I wouldn't mind living in there. And there's two reasons, though, why you would prefer to live in a house with tile rather than straw or thatch. The first is rain. Rain does eventually soak through this stuff, whereas this sheds rain quite nicely. So if you live in this house, if it's if it was the old style like that was used in the Middle Ages, you would eventually get covered in rain if it rains hard. Here's the other reason. Rats. Roof rats. Roof rats cannot live in tile roofs. They cannot burrow through them. They cannot fall on you while you're asleep. Roof rats do live in thatched roofs. They can burrow through them, and they can fall on you while you're asleep. So can you imagine having this little guy? I mean, he is cute, but I don't want to have him falling on me at 3 a.m. It's also really bad if it falls on me, and then a flea that was on him jumps from him to me and starts biting me, then I'll get fleas. What's even worse if those fleas are carrying plague. So that's an example of a definite decline in living standards. I like tile roofs because I don't like to be rained on while I'm asleep, and I don't like rats to fall on my face while I'm asleep. Thank you very much. Now, as much as I would like to end with this cute little guy, we do have a problem. What happened to the Vikings? Right? What happens to those Vikings who are out running amok? Well, they've remained fearsome warriors, right? They're going to stay warriors. They're going to be stay tough, but they're going to change teams. For the most part, they're going to convert to Christianity. And that may seem kind of odd considering we started this lecture talking about how they were attacking Christians. Why would they then convert to Christianity? And there's probably multiple reasons. Reasons we've seen so far. So if you think about it from the bottom up, right? Christianity offered a nice afterlife. Sometimes it offered charity when there were Christians wealthy enough to give it. That's a little bit trickier here. It offered for people, especially if you were poor and weak, it offered a sense of human dignity. There's a God who loves me and cares about me. So there's probably those kinds of reasons are going to lead some Vikings on their own to choose to convert to Christianity. But there's also going to be Vikings who will convert because their king converts. So there's going to be some kings who will convert to Christianity. Why? Well, the same reasons why the Frankish kings converted to Christianity. If you become a Christian, then that will give you access to this advanced civilization, advanced learning. Christians are pretty good at government administration right now, and as the Vikings are trying to develop more complex states, as Viking kings expand and gain more territory, they need help with administration. They need education. All those things that we talked about previously that Christianity could give them. So that's also key. In addition, sometimes peace treaties would require that the Vikings convert to Christianity. And when the Vikings were given land, right, when the Vikings were given land, and I put given in quotation marks because sometimes what happens was the Vikings would invade and then refuse to leave. And then the government that was supposed to be controlling that land was like, okay, we're going to give you that land that you already occupy. Basically, we're just recognizing that it's yours now. But sometimes when they gave them that land, they would say, okay, Vikings, you can keep that land. You have to defend it, make sure that no other Vikings attack, and you have to become Christians. And, you know, it's questionable how sincere this was. I'm sure among some people it was quite sincere. Among others, it probably was not. One story I think is very funny is that when they did baptize a Viking, like a Viking noble or king, it would be a pretty big party. And there was one Viking king who complained because when he was baptized, he said, you know, the other time they baptized me, it was much nicer. This time you guys didn't throw me such a good party. And of course, in Christianity, you're not supposed to be baptized twice, right? So that was kind of the funny part. So he was clearly doing it just for political reasons. But some were actually believed in it. And even if they didn't believe in it when they converted, as time went on, they would adopt Christianity as their own religion. So if you study, for example, the Normans, who are very, very important, they're the ones that will conquer England in 1066. They're the key to the Crusades. They're called Normans because they were Northmen, Vikings. Right? They were called Normans because they were Northmen. They were Vikings. But like I said, it's tricky to tell. Now this monument here is called the Jelling Stone because it was put up in a place called Jelling. And you can see it is Jesus crucified, but using Viking art. And the king that put that up was named Harald Bluetooth. And I think you can kind of see in him this complexity, right? There's several different stories, and all of them could actually be true in a sense, about why he would convert to Christianity. First of all, he was a king who was trying to build up his kingdom. He was actually having kind of a hard time because he had a lot of enemies. And so bringing an ally, say the Catholic Church and Christian kingdoms, that might be a good idea. That might help strengthen him. In addition, it was said that he accepted baptism after he made a peace treaty with a Christian kingdom. That was part of the deal, and he accepted it. Did he know what it meant to be baptized? Did he care what it meant to be baptized? It's not clear, right? But he did, of course, commission this stone. He's the guy that had this stone put up. And one of the stories is he met a monk who was trying to convert him, Paulo, this guy here. And he said to the monk, well, if your God is so powerful, you need to prove it to me. And the Germanic kingdoms and the Vikings had something called the ordeal, which is where you would do something that would injure you, theoretically. And if you did it and you weren't injured, or if you healed very well afterwards, that meant that you were right, that the gods or God had blessed you. So Paulo agreed, basically, they took like a big piece of iron and they heated it up so it was like red hot, and he picked it up and carried it a long time, and he didn't get burned. And then Harl Bluetooth is like, okay, yours is the true religion. I'm going to believe in it. And that goes this whole idea of supernatural power. Now, what are we supposed to make of all this? There's probably a lot of things going on, right? The monk probably was impressive. Maybe he did do some kind of feat that impressed Harl Bluetooth. There were certainly political considerations. And like most things, there were probably a lot going on. But the fact is, we begin this lecture with the Vikings kind of causing trouble, right? They prevent the Frankish kingdom from developing into the new Roman Empire. They are attacking Christian churches. And in the end, they become Christians themselves. Kind of interesting story, I think.